Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Growers Live. I am Josh Satin. Super excited as always to be here this evening. Have an awesome guest. We have Jordan Cooper of Sugar Top Farms, and a couple of announcements like usual. Just remember we're doing this every other Tuesday night, and it's interesting that this year we are totally skipping all of the holidays and just going right through it. Somehow none of the shows lined up on the holidays, so we will not take a break, which is great for you guys, and I'm really excited to bring these shows out to you guys. Couple of announcements, as I said. Obviously, you guys have hopefully been enjoying season 3 of Jesse's podcast, and we have 3 new podcasts coming out, one of which is coming out tomorrow, so that's going to be super cool. The No Till Flowers podcast with Jenny Love of Love and Fresh Flowers. And for all of you no-till flower nerds, this will be the podcast for you guys. And as I said, it will be out. I think it's launching. 3 episodes will drop tomorrow, is what I've been told. And the other 2 podcasts have not been announced yet, but you can look for those in 2021. And I am really excited about both of those. So all of this work is possible because of your support with the Patreon account. So if you haven't already, please go check out patreon.com/no-till-growers. And there's so many people involved in this community, and it's super special, and I'm really honored to be part of it and having your support. So thank you. Coming up for future shows, on January 5th, we're going to have Jonathan Dysinger of Farmer's Friend, so the owner of Farmer's Friend. On the 19th, we'll have Shannon Michael Wammond of Hillview Farms, and on February 2nd, Jody Roebuck of Roebuck Farms. So I'm really excited about all those guests, and it's going to be amazing. And we're going to keep this rolling. I have been having a great time with not only interacting with you guys, but also with all the growers. Like, everyone's been so cool being on the show, and we've been having a great time nerding out. So thanks for everyone for showing up tonight. And let's get Jordan in here. Jordan, good evening.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Awesome. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. So, Jordan, if not everyone's familiar with your farm and what you do, can you tell us a little bit about where you are and what you guys are up to?
Yeah, so we're in Clermont, Florida, and that's Central Florida, a little bit outside, kind of equal distance from downtown Orlando and Disney. So we're like 45 minutes from each. We do a farmer's market outside of Orlando in Winter Park. We are 2.5 acres. What makes our location a little bit unique is where we are in Florida. We're at the tallest point. So Florida is like really, really flat, and we're at 300 feet above sea level, so it's a little bit different, a little bit of a microclimate here. And we grow about 1 acre of vegetables and about 1/2 acre of fruit production, predominantly peaches. And we're in the middle of our season right now. We go from October all the way through May, so June, July, August, and sometimes this year we took September off just because of COVID and everything. We made it through the end of last season kind of in the middle of COVID, so we took a little bit longer to get back. We had some changes due to COVID, but yeah, we're growing, and we're about midway through our season. Probably not quite yet. January normally is, but yeah, we're moving along.
Cool. And if people aren't familiar with your farm, I mean, you guys are growing a ton of food there, and super cool. But one of the things that's most unique, I think, of learning about what you guys are doing, you guys are in such a unique situation in terms of geography, soil, climate, and growing in just a different way. I mean, I remember I was just catching up and listening to the podcast, and I want to talk about also later about like things that have changed since then, if anyone has listened to that episode. But, I think for me, I love talking to growers further south of me because I feel like that's what North Carolina is going to be like in a few years, almost. And so I've heard of some farmers even here starting to think about like, hey, maybe let's take the summers off. But that's not even an option. Like, you guys have to do that for the most part, right?
Yeah, I don't really know I mean, I guess I know one farm, but they're even north of us. But yeah, every other farm I know takes it off, and it's just so limited on what you can grow. The humidity is just, I mean, people don't, it's like 100%, even at nighttime, I guess, is the big difference from other places. That really is the big difference, because, I mean, we really get warm, in the summer, it's crazy hot, and you just don't want to be outside, but we just don't get a reprieve at night. So it's still like mid to high 70s, 100% humidity, and it's just not ideal for anything. I mean, there's a couple things you can get away with, but Usually in a non-COVID year, people usually travel, so it's like, snowbirds go back home. It's like people don't want to be here, so it's not even like we would have restaurants slow down like crazy. It's just not an ideal situation. So unless you have like a summer CSA or something like that you really want to push through, but yeah, that no part of me wants to farm during the summer at all. I mean, it's like off-season projects. This is our busy time. I mean, we have short days right now, and we're doing, some of our busiest, most production. So it's a nice reprieve in the summer for us.
Okay, so it sounds like the temperatures are more ideal for growing, and you guys do a lot of cooler. You guys do a lot of green productions and stuff, right? You do a lot of lettuce and those sorts of things, or what are some of your vegetables you guys are growing?
Yeah, I would say our base kind of like a salad is mostly lettuce. We do a good amount of arugula. Those are like our two big. Every week we have them from the beginning of the season until the end. Never really have a week off of those. So it's tough to kind of get lettuce started out of the summer here, and then kind of towards the end you're just kind of running out the clock and just hoping that lettuce kind of holds on and you can grow enough, because then people really want to start having salads and stuff. But I would say those two. We do tomatoes a good amount of, a lot of root crops, so we try to have turnips and radishes every week. We do a lot of bunch greens, so kales, collards, dandelion greens we have pretty much every week. Do a good amount of broccolini. That's kind of been our niche a little bit. I mean, like salad greens have been, but there's other people obviously that do salad greens, but as like a pure kind of like our own crop that maybe we're known for, I would probably say broccolini. For some reason, other farms don't do it, and I'm kind of happy about it. So other farms that we compete with, at least at the farmers market. So yeah, those are our main crops, and we'll get into the squash and zucchini and the cucumbers, of course, like early fall, and then we have a chance again in the spring to do those. But the light levels just get too low this time of year to really do them, and the low temperatures. So yeah, it's greens, a lot of microgreens. That's probably our number two. Might even be our most profitable. Edible flowers we started doing a lot of, and then in the spring, fruit really gives us a nice little boost too.
Cool. So, is it mostly going to restaurants, or is there a farmers market you guys are going to?
So we're doing a farmers market in Winter Park, and that's on Saturdays, and we've done that for 3-4 years, and that's really solid for us. There's a lot of restaurants in Winter Park too, so it's a good demographic. Has a nice downtown, so we work with a lot of those restaurants. This year we started a CSA, which I never thought we would, but COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got out of last season doing some interesting things with some restaurants, like kind of doing some online store ordering, and through their website we've been doing. We did some that kind of got us out of the end of last season, and then in the summer we really wanted to. I mean, nobody knew. We kind of left our customers. We didn't even really see them. It was drop off at a restaurant, and they would pick it up, and the restaurant staff would bring it out to them. It was kind of like a farmers market put on by a restaurant that had multiple locations. So we didn't see a lot of our customers even, once COVID happened. It was like, your farmers market's canceled on a Saturday. They let us know on like a Thursday, and then we never saw our base again. So we put out a CSA. It was really humbling and nice that we had 15, 20 people. That's kind of what we wanted to start with. Sign up. We've never done a CSA. And we enjoy it. We're doing it by season, so we're doing a fall one, which just ended last week. This last week was the first winter CSA, and then we're doing a spring CSA. So we want to make sure it works for us and our customers. We do have an online store as well, so that's been really good for us. And restaurants are a big part, and a little bit of retail.
Wow, it's very diversified in terms of your sales
Yeah.
outlets.
And we wanted to always be like that. I used to tell people it was always a third, and then this past season we kind of were like 40, and then 10% retail. And but it look at COVID. I mean, it's that it was awesome because retail really stepped up. Restaurants went obviously way down, and then direct consumers went way up. So it's nice to kind of have your toes in all those different sectors.
And I'm sure you said you're selling at least to Disney or near Disney. So how's that been affected with COVID? Like, is that just much quieter? And
I was there today or a little bit earlier, and it was slam. So, yeah, it's coming back for sure. People have to have their Disney. It's around the holidays. It's crazy. It's insane. Um, but no, they were honestly one of the first ones out of COVID. You know, they shut down for a while, and then they came out of COVID. And the hotels that we worked with really slowed down because it's all about like occupancy level with them. So they still have not come back, and they'll probably be slower to come back once we kind of, obviously get back into a little bit more of a norm. But the pure restaurants down there, they kind of started back a little slowly, and I was happy. They upkept like a minimum and stuff, but I was just happy to have some sales that way. And I do microgreens through the summer, so I was still able to sell to them through the summer, and little by little they've been coming back on. And I would say from like definitely like probably October time that got really busy, and then like Thanksgiving it just goes up, and then around Christmas it's just really busy. So we'll see if it continues, but it was affected, yeah, for sure, because that was becoming a really big source of an income for us. Pretty much all microgreens and edible flowers with them. I mean, sometimes if we're super heavy on a crop and I can give a deal to maybe a chef that appreciates it down there, we can do that. But yeah, as you know, microgreens, are a very profitable crop. So it was a little bit of a hit. We're growing probably more field crops than we ever have before. And we're focusing a little bit more on that. But even our farmers market, we do a lot of microgreens with them. So we still do a good amount.
Cool. Well, it sounds like having those diversified sales outlets. I think farmers everywhere. The more everyone got really diversified this year with all that. But so I want to talk about some growing stuff. My two things I want to ask you about. I mean, I have a long things. I have a lot of things I want to ask you about, Jordan. But anyways, first thing is the heat. Like, what are some of your main strategies to deal with the heat in terms of growing? Because I know a lot of southern growers are really struggling with this right now, and I think a lot of us are trying to grow like salad greens and arugula and stuff like that, where we like in North Carolina I know the humidity levels can't be as high as Florida, but we get heat and humidity all summer long, and that's when everyone wants lettuce. So like,
Yeah.
what are some things in terms of like infrastructure or watering or things like that's been helpful for you?
Yeah, those are the two biggies, I would say. I mean, even I don't know how it is in North Carolina, but I mean, if you try to germinate normal lettuce in the middle of the summer, you're probably looking at like 30% germination. It's pretty tough just to even get that seed to pop. So, I mean, that's kind of where you need to start at. There's some different tricks and things like that. Like using your walk-in cooler, maybe a little bit. Sometimes we don't even have it on during the summer, so that's kind of a tough part. Water is definitely a aspect. I mean, we're pumping out of the aquifer, so it's pretty cold, 70 72 degree water, so that helps a lot. I think what I've learned a lot, and infrastructure wise, we have 4 tunnels right now, 3 of which were, one's a prop house, one's like a warm season house, and then 2 were open air structures with shade cloth, and those are big structures totaling 50 across now and 150 down. So it's a pretty big area for, it probably takes up like a quarter of our growing space, at least, maybe even a third. We have one that has about 40% shade cloth, and that's a white on white shade cloth. It's actually a 39% shade cloth from Ludwig Svensson. It's called their Harmony, and that's a white on white. Black never made sense to me with the shade cloth when you're talking, just because it attracts heat. And I know a lot of people around here at least use a product called the Luminet, which has been around forever. It originated in Israel. It's just old technology, in my opinion. So if anybody's interested, I would probably recommend checking out Ludwig Svensson. They're actually in North Carolina. I believe their U.S. base is in. I think they're out of Charlotte. So they're really good. I think as far as shade cloth goes, I think it's a good 10-15 degrees cooler in the middle of, on a hot sunny day. And then the timing, I think, of irrigation is such a big part of it. What I've learned is less frequent, more often, I think, is a big part of it. As opposed to, just trying to douse your crops all day long. It's tough here because with the humidity, we really have to be pretty careful with the water. Yeah, so I mean, those are the main things. There's nothing like the lettuce we're producing right now. It's tough to replicate that in the shoulder seasons of trying to do it in September or in April, May. Right now we're just it's really nice, fluffy, big heads with a nice sweet taste. I mean, it's hard to replicate. It really is, unless you're pumping cold air into a controlled greenhouse, which some people do here. I mean, there's tons of nurseries and stuff, so I've seen that before. Where you got cold water coming down and they're pumping the fans through there to get a nice chill. Or a lot of people, what they do here is hydroponics and aquaponics and stuff like that. So your roots are in there and they can pump it out, or it's in a climate controlled environment. There's not many people doing outdoor pure growing. So the structures we built too, we have the one from a couple years ago that has shade cloth. We gutter connected it and we added a identical one with it. And that one just has plastic. So we're kind of seeing the difference of the two. Right now, light levels are pretty low, so it's not too big of a difference. But I'll be interested this is our first season with the new one. So kind of, not to get too specific, but kind of coming out of the summer, we needed to cover it somehow as part of the NRCS grant. So they wanted to cover it some way. And we had leftover shade cloth from our old tunnel, which ripped during Irma. And we had our greenhouse builder. He was able to sew it up really nice, and we put it over that structure, mostly because you don't want plastic during hurricanes. That's kind of how your greenhouse will get messed up. And ours is cemented in the ground. It's not going anywhere, so it would be the plastic ripping off and then it kind of going with it. Anyway, we just had shade cloth on it. That was a 55% Ludwig Svensson shade cloth, so pretty, cuts a good amount out. And didn't like it as much as just plastic. It's kind of being very simplistic with it, but plastic is kind of like the key. Plastic, in my opinion, takes 10% off already of UV light, and just not getting the rain. So with the shade cloth, we were getting rain in, and we just wanted that just again because of the hurricane and to get the funding going. But there's a huge difference with the plastic. Just getting the water off is key, and being able to control the water when you want, because of course when you get rain, then maybe you can't irrigate when you want. So I would say timing's a big thing. The infrastructure. What I was going to say about those two big buildings before I forgot was I believe the center is 16 feet high. So we're talking about a pretty tall building. We wanted to go as high as possible. So with heat rising, you don't want, our tomato house has the lowest ceiling, just so that heat is, retained at the top. These are things we think about. I don't know if other areas do as well. I'm sure maybe in the opposite capacity, but that heat can go up there and stay away from the crops. When you're talking about a really hot sunny day. So in those salad houses, what we call them and what we grow predominantly is salad in those, that air has a chance to escape. And then those buildings are so long that plastic goes only 100 feet long. So we have to do a 75-foot. We buy 200 pieces, 200-foot pieces. We go 75-foot, cut it, 75-foot, cut it, and then in the middle, it's just shade cloth. And we learned that when we had our Hurricane Irma come by and ruin ours, that was plastic throughout. And what we found was the weight of the rain and everything caused that to sag in the middle. And then you're talking about huge, hurricane 100-mile-an-hour winds causing that to kind of bow in. So that kind of acts twofold, as getting the water off and also letting that air kind of escape if it's really, really stagnant and hot. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's able to just leave the house at that point.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to get some of you gave a lot of stuff there. So you prefer to have a plastic covering and then shade cloth over it versus just shade cloth?
For sure, absolutely, okay. Yeah. Just from a rain purpose, yeah, of course, yeah. Disease growth and all that. When you're talking about high humidity, it's imperative to keep that moisture off of it.
And I saw either some photos or video of your place. In those structures, are there no walls on them, or do you have walls on them?
No walls, you're right. Yeah, it's open-ended. I guess that's what I'm talking. Open end walls, open everything. There's no roll-up curtains. There's no option for it. I mean, they're a big investment anyway. I mean, you're talking about a structure. The original structure was 24 by 154. So then we added another one. That's why I said it's 50 by 150, just giving you a round number. But they're expensive. And when you're talking roll-up curtains and stuff like that, in my opinion, that just doubles the cost of the price of the greenhouse. I mean, we have two other houses with roll-up curtains. So kind of a way around that. And maybe it had a little bit to do. Like I was thinking a little outside the box. I don't know how familiar you are with the NRCS high tunnel program, but they just give you square footage. So it doesn't make sense to do all the bells and whistles without, just getting that square footage hitting the, maximum allotment. Not that you're cheating the system or anything, you just want to get as much square footage as you can. And for our purposes, we want to use them as a salad house. We want to use them even in the wintertime just to get the rain off of it, and then cold nights. That's how a lot of soil-borne disease starts. So just to keep mainly we do so much baby arugula and stuff like that, just keep that dry, keep the root rot off, everything that you can get with some like really heavy nighttime rains and stuff with high humidity.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, moving back to my home farm now, I'm growing 100% undercover. So I'm I see the benefit, and it's funny, Jordan, everyone, when you talk about tunnels, everyone always says, "Oh, season extension." I'm like, "Man, it's just about keeping the rain off of things here." Like that's my biggest enemy in North Carolina is the rain. So
And rain, it's not just rain though. Rain brings so much with it. Is really the key, at least in my opinion. It's all the side effects with rain. And you just grow nicer produce under plastic. I mean, it is what it is. I don't, in my opinion here, I think it's getting the UV off of it a little bit, but at the same time, I don't know. I've had this conversation with other growers too, and I hear other growers talking about under plastic, just magical things happen. It's crazy, but yeah.
All right. So some of the other things, and then I'll probably take some questions. But obviously, having cover, having shade cloth, having good ventilation and big open sides. What about like varieties, spacing, or irrigation? Like, you said use watering more often but less per round. What about like, are you using all overhead for all that, or like what have you found to work for you?
Yeah, we use all overhead, mostly from not just a cooling purpose, but germination, of course. So, baby arugula, of course, we're doing mostly 10 rows on a bed, and, obviously needs a good amount of germination. On hot, sunny days, that bed can dry out extremely quick. So, that's really our only option. We use Seninger and mini wobblers. Potentially want to go to inverted and hang them on the tunnels and just let them kind of fall down. It might be a summer project this season with the building of the new one and everything. It was kind of figuring that whole system out and how we're going to do that. But now we might just run them down the center. We like the on the Seninger. We've tried almost every color. They're based in Clermont in our city. The kind of the manufacturer and the head, they bought out another company, but so we've kind of talked to them and tried out different ones. I believe it's lavender that we like, so it's more of a mist. Certain positions, it's around the farm. It's better to get a little bit of a bigger drop, and we get a little bit more winds. So when you're dealing with higher winds and a super small drop, it's how much is really going down. But for cooling purposes, it's the way to go, of course. So as far as variety, spacing, things like that, like with arugula, I think everybody knows we grow a lot of Astro. We did just try, and now it's just dawning on me, but there's a new arugula Johnny's just came out called Dakita, I believe. It's kind of like a fast-growing wild arugula, which I didn't really notice too much of a difference now that I'm thinking about it. Pretty sure I harvested last week, but yeah, so we grow a lot of Astro. I mean, it really doesn't matter with the arugula. I mean, they love heat. It gets super strong. Our customers love it. I mean, it is like super intense, but that's what people like. As far as lettuce goes, we do a lot of the Salanovas. We paper pot every Salanova that we grow. Still always up in the air. Everyone has their plus and minuses when it comes to Salanova, like everybody I'm sure knows and experienced. Frizzigo, we did last season and we did this season. I don't know how many people are familiar, or if you're familiar with that. Almost like an iceberg, but it's super crunchy. Gets really nice. We've been selling it as heads lately. I just seeded some Rubigo, which I think is brand new. So we're always trying some new varieties of Salanova. It's hard to get away from Green Sweet Crisp. We like the reds. We grow a lot of red butter this time of year. People love it. We do a straight mix of red butter, and people just go crazy. And then what we've been doing a lot of now, end of last season, beginning of this season is direct seeded lettuce. So that's been pretty cool for us. I feel like it's less bitter when it's really warm. And that's just with the Jang, and we've never done it before. But I got the idea, and we've been doing it, and people really like it. I think it's a higher quality lettuce. It probably doesn't last as long as Salanova, and doesn't yield as much per bed, but you're getting a quicker turnaround, obviously, and it's a different harvest method. There's pluses and minuses for sure, but growing that under a tunnel and having a really good crop, I mean, that's where it's at.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, like listening to you talk, and you're like, oh yeah, like red butter, and I'm like, man, for most of my season, like I'm not growing that, like it's too hot here. But you guys are growing in the winter, so like,
Yeah.
I mean, as you mentioned earlier, I mean, winter growing greens is killer. Like they taste so good in the wintertime. And it's just a little slower, but they taste, yeah, they're super fluffy heads, big yields, multiple cuts.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, for me, I'm like, everyone wants lettuce in the summer when it's the hardest to grow.
Yeah. And it's same with us. I mean, in the summer, and everybody's like, "What am I going to do for salad?" And we've tried growing my. It's just I just tell people it's not worth it. Just eat the stuff that you can't eat during the year. It's tough like that. But people still like salad, even in our coldest weeks. Like we've been having some really cold weeks, and I'm like, we're not going to sell too many salads. People are into soups or whatever they're doing. You know, in Florida, 70 degrees is freezing. So it's like if we have a week full of 50s, it's like people don't really want salads, but people every week come and buy salads. Yeah, people. If you're a salad person, you're pretty loyal.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm gonna get some questions here, and then if you guys have questions in the chat, make sure you guys get those in. I do want to talk a little about soil stuff and bed prep, and I don't know. You talked about some new things you've implemented on your farm, but I want to get some questions first. So maybe we can come back to that. So, so from the Patreon, Thomas Eliason says, "Do growers get quality tests done on their irrigation water?" So, have you tested any of your irrigation water?
I have not, but I mean, I even just got an email talking about some cost share program that they're doing, the mobile irrigation labs. I don't know if that's something like that is done in every state. It's something that's like, I think it's a free program here. We don't, but where we are, specifically our little microclimate, it's kind of strange, but we have like pristine water. We drink the water without any filtration. I mean, it's as good as it gets. We don't have any like iron staining. I mean, I've always said, even if there is a problem, like, what are we really? I mean, I know there's things you could do, but I mean, like I said, it's like I think the highlight of living and farming where we are, like we're high up, we're getting it from the aquifer, sediments dropping down. We're kind of just like taking off this like top nice portion of water. So never had a problem with it, but no, we don't test our water.
Okay. And that was interesting. You said that your water is like 70, 72 degrees. I mean, I have a well where I am, and it's like 55 degrees all year round. But like the city water here is like 85 in the summer here. I can't even imagine what it's like down in your area.
The city water, yeah. I mean, I grew up on it. Yeah, it's like always. It's definitely warmer than what we have, but yeah, it's nice. I mean, when it's warm out, it feels really, really cold, and then when it's cooler out, it's like almost kind of nice. It's like almost a little warming. That's why people like a lot of big commercial strawberry growers, like if we're expecting a freeze, they'll just run their overhead irrigation all night because it's not going to freeze with 70-degree water hitting it.
That's interesting. Okay, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, that's a big. That's their like frost protection. The big strawberry growers, because we grow them in the winter, I guess, for the rest of the U.S. domestically, if you want them domestic. So yeah.
Okay, good to know. And also, the cooler water is great for washing too. I think a lot of people overlook that too.
Yeah, no, you're very right. Even pulling it off the field and getting that field heat off, and you get a nice cold bath. Yeah, for sure.
And we were talking before about Fair Share Farm, and they actually like chill their greens down overnight, and then I don't know if they're still doing that this year, and then the next day they actually wash it in ice water.
Wow. I don't know who's doing the washing, but good for them, because that's tough. I mean, even on a cold morning, putting your hands in,
I think it's mainly summer stuff is I think the key.
Okay.
I doubt that they're doing that in the wintertime, and they have like an indoor sort of area to do that, but I was like, wow, that's like, because I think about that sometimes too. Like you take the lettuce, let's say lettuce, for example, and you throw it in your fridge and then you throw it in 70-degree water. I don't know if there's or 80-degree water. Like, I don't know if you're then damaging the crop at that point.
Yeah, we've tried that in the past, and what we found more so is dirt doesn't come off of it as easy. It's almost like dirt sticks to it when you put it in the cooler immediately coming off of the field. I don't know, roots the same thing, but we've always come with that. So even on a hot day, we'll harvest and then keep it in the pack house without putting it in the walk-in, just because we don't want. A lot of people think, oh, you got to take the field heat off of it. We've always found, even with roots, that holds on to dirt. It almost, maybe it's sand. It could be a sand thing that is just kind of like the kind of like, I don't know. It just has always been for us. That's all I can tell. I've only farmed in Florida, but yeah, it's we'd rather kind of leave it out. But it makes a huge difference. It's almost like we just need to get water on it, and then the rest of the process can kind of, as we want. It's just getting that initial that field heat is, yeah.
Okay,
It's
but
pretty important.
keeping it in the shade. You're not like leaving it in the sun, I'm
No, no,
assuming.
no, in the pack house.
Oh
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You said leaving it out. I'm like, oh my god.
No, no, no. Yeah, and we're west. We have a west facing pack house, so yeah, the
Okay.
sun. We got to be careful of that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Another question from Thomas. Who are 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced you and your work?
Interesting. Well, I would definitely say JM. Saw him in conference like before I started, and that was really eye opening. Of course, that was like my first introduction to everything. So reading his book, I mean, that was kind of our blueprint. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there wasn't a lot on Florida vegetable growing, so it's tough to. It wasn't like there was anything. I mean, there was like Florida gardening books that I would look at, and that kind of like really got me familiar with the growing seasons and stuff like that. I have a neighbor that I first was introduced to even before I moved here, and he kind of gave me the lay of the land as far as our soil types. He doesn't like have production, but he got me into like the Aubric style of soil testing. So he owns a orange juice company, so he grew orange and citrus all in this area. So it's just kind of like that was the only thing that was grown here before. So it was really nice. That was really eye opening. And then just learning from other farms that we respect on Instagram or wherever we may see it. You know that's of course really important. And the No Till podcast. I mean, some things were new that we're doing this year. We've learned from it. And yeah, we're always open minded. Nothing's ever set in stone and not open to change. So it's from a lot of farms. It's from a lot of conversation and visiting farms, like in your neck of the woods that we have in the past. And you just learn a lot just from talking to people and sharing ideas and seeing what other people are doing and then applying it to your system.
Yeah, I think. And first of all, if you're next time you're up in this area, please let me know.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the community is it's becoming more. I hope at least it's not like a few people sort of telling people what to do. It's just like it's a community where everyone's sort of. It's like open source. Like everyone's sharing, everyone's learning, everyone's like, hey, this works, this doesn't work. And I think I felt that more than ever lately with not just like all the farms like involved with no-till growers, but like all the people I've talked to. And I feel like everyone's like, hey, how did you do this? Or did this work? Or did that work? And I think I recommend that to people all the time, just getting into farming, like meet farmers in your area, especially because they're going to know way more about your context than anywhere else. And so I think that's super valuable with like you and your experience with your neighbors. So
Yeah, and he's not like competing, obviously he's in citrus, he's a national company. It's Uncle Matt's. I don't know if anybody's ever, I don't know if you can get that out there. It's like the only organic orange juice. So he's just completely different. But yeah, I mean, even if you are in the same, I mean, it's tough, it's a fine line of, I understand the other, I'm not recommending it or saying to do it, but I haven't done it. But if somebody moves in next door and they want all the answers, it's kind of difficult. But at the same time, there's enough people out there that want quality, locally grown, nutrient dense produce that it's never an issue. I've never been like fighting. There's some, of course, restaurants that you go, oh yeah, I've gotten crops from so and so, but it's about learning different things and working together. It's like, why are we all going to grow the same crops? Like, let's find our own little niche and make the community a better place. So yeah, absolutely.
very cool. All right, so my man Gene here, Jordan, are you growing in deep compost beds to stay away about the very sandy soil? So maybe talk a little bit about your sandy soil and things you tried, things have worked, things have not worked, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so we've tried a lot of different forms of organic matter, I guess I should say. Everything from spent mushroom substrate to a little bit of clay to biochar to compost to animal manure to trying to think what else we've thrown down there. Yeah, we've.
And just let people know what you started with too.
You mean as far as native soil?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, imagine just going to the beach and yeah, there's nothing else to it. Yeah, so it's sand pretty much. I mean, if you dig deep, you'll get a little bit where we are of a little bit of a clay lens. Other people in lower areas may have a little bit of a higher organic matter, is what I've kind of come to terms with, and just looking around, it's maybe a little bit darker. But we have a little bit of like a clay, little bit, there'd be some pockets here and there, but yeah, we're a little bit more clay just because we're on some elevation, and trust me, the rest of Florida, like where I grew up and everywhere else, is just flat, swampy-ish, that type of thing. So we're a little unusual in that regard, but very, very sandy. There's no way getting around it. Pretty much everywhere in Florida, you kind of start the same way. So yeah, we've tried everything. The tough part about Florida soil, I guess, is not only is it the low organic matter, I'm convinced sun erosion plays a huge part in the degrading of our soils. Not that we started out with anything amazing, but if you have exposed soil and you're not irrigating it constantly or keeping it covered, that becomes sand extremely quickly again. So no matter what you're doing, you're kind of going back to square one. What we've moved to now, after years of trying to do different things, is we found a very, very high carbon organic compost, which was not easy, but we did find it. No animal manures whatsoever. So we have very high phosphorus. Native soil is very high in phosphorus. So animal manures are very high in phosphorus. So you think like, yeah, let's just add a bunch of, and we have in the past, like we had a chicken farm near us, not huge, but like 1,000 birds. And I literally like just gung ho used to come and like scrape his hen houses and like bring back chicken manure. And like looking back at it, it's obviously ridiculous. But not only that, but we were adding phosphorus. Not only was it was barely, it was covering like 10 feet. But that's the tough part. So for a while, we weren't using any compost or organic matter, and we were just trying to balance the soils and add amendments and trying just to work with our sand. We cover crop heavily every summer. So we grow a thick stand of sun hemp, which adds a lot of organic matter. Yeah, I'm a little, I hate to say I'm like getting a little skeptical of cover cropping, but I think this summer we're actually not going to cover crop for a change. Probably the first time in 5 years that we haven't, for a host of different reasons. I mean, that's like a show of its own, but yeah, so right now we are like this. We did cover crop this past season, so we kind of started with that, and we did try some like lasagna style cardboard-ish beds type of system that we saw some other people doing. So we did buy the BCS compost spreader this season. So we found the good compost. We changed our bed flipping tactics, and so we're adding compost after every bed flip, and yeah, we're just going high carbon compost after every bed turnover, and just adding more and more. And yeah, carbon's really the key, though, in my opinion. We're just using it as a sponge. There's not much nutrients in it, so we're balancing our soils using an all-brick method, and we're adding the compost, which shouldn't be adding much nutrients, and then we're, amending it as we see fit as the season goes on, and kind of going from there. And we've been pretty impressed with what we've gotten so far, and that the compost spreader, if anybody has the BCS and is looking for a new attachment, it's kind of reinvigorated my love for BCS. Honestly, like I was kind of a little down on it. We were just using it to mow grass, and it's true. Like we're not using the tiller, and like a rotary plow and stuff we weren't using. I don't know what other people are. I guess rotary harrow some people use it for, but yeah, we use it, and we love it, and it's great, and it puts it out in a nice even way. It's really well made, the compost spreader, so I'd really recommend that if anybody's looking into something like that.
Very cool. Yeah, I've never owned a BCS. I would like the flail mower and probably the compost spreader. Those would probably be my two tools that I'd be reaching for.
Yeah. The flare mower is tough though, because I don't know if you can necessarily. I guess you can mow your grass, but we have the combo mower.
Okay.
So it cuts. It cuts. We use it sometimes for our cover crop. Like this past season, we used the like the 2x4 method with rope and stepping on it,
Yeah.
crimping like manual crimping, human crimping, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we go through the opposite way with our combo mower, and it's powerful.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. As long as the blades are pretty sharp and stuff. Yeah.
So in terms of your compost, you're buying that in, or are you guys making a lot of that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
so in your area, like, what's the carbon source? Are there a lot of like where's that coming from? Trees, or do you know what's in your compost?
Yeah, it's landscape companies are dropping it off, and I mean landscape companies. I mean, there's millions of them. Grass grows like crazy, trees grow like crazy. So, it was honestly, it's certified organic. Not that we are, but it's nice just to have that, and it's nice to have a odor-free, good. I mean, it's a good smell, because we've gone everything. Like when we first started, everybody around here uses a spent mushroom substrate, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's just, it's just, don't even get me started. But yeah, it's synthetic. I mean, it's just, there's so many things wrong with it, and you grow great crops originally, but it's just a lot of people don't know what they're doing with it. But yeah, it's yard debris for the most part.
Okay.
I wish it was a little bit screened. I mentioned it to the company. They're actually looking into getting a finer screen, and either that or more of an aged product. So I'm probably getting another 20. I think we got 26 tons, 30 tons the first load. So we're probably going to get another one, and we've been spreading a lot of it. It's great, yeah. So either a little bit more aged is what I'm either going to get, and because I think they held off on the screener for now, but a little, that would be my only. There's a little bit of mulchiness in like certain pockets that maybe didn't break down all the way, but if you're just using it for a carbon source, my only I guess hesitation with that is that there'd be some like nitrogen lockout with that if you got undeveloped or non-broken down material.
Right. You can't just throw wood chips in there and be like, yeah, I'm cool. Right. There's a lot of carbon there.
Yeah.
Sourcing compost in a lot of areas is very hard. And even where I am, I've been struggling to find the right mix for my system. And there was one company that was making just yard waste compost, just like you're talking about. And they just, broken down and like they stopped making it. And so like you can't get that here. And so it's, I don't know, you kind of got to work with what you got. But so what is the and I'm glad you guys found that. I just got a delivery that's like half leaf mold, half compost. So we'll see how that goes.
See, I would like something like that, like leaf mold, but I never. I mean, people would think I was crazy if I asked for that. They already do, and I'm like, what are you asking questions about their compost? They don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So what is the bed flip process? How's it evolved at this point? You guys are like literally just laying down compost, or is there any other steps in there?
Yeah, so we honestly, it changed our farm when I listened to Ray Tyler on No-Till, and I don't know if you remember what his process was, but he's pretty much just cropping. If it's baby greens or it's all a little bit different for us. Like if we're root crops, we don't really do it, but because you're pulling everything out. But if it's anything from lettuce heads to broccoli plant to a bed of baby greens, which is mostly what we're trying to get past, just because that's such a laborious process, and honestly was the worst part of farming. I think a lot of people can identify with that. So it's just cutting it right after you're done, covering compost, watering in well, landscape fabric. Our heat works to our advantage in that way. Amazing stuff, though. I don't know how I never thought of that. It's crazy, when you think about it and you're like, it's so simple. But adding that microbiology really breaks things down. And I'm telling you, it's like, I pull tarps off and I'm just in disbelief. It's just like, you're just there and you're ready, amend it, tilt it, whatever you want to do. And, you're ready to go. So it's pretty amazing. And, like I said, just so much more time. I mean, that was a job I mostly would have my employees do. And now it's like, can have them do a lot of other things with that time. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, I started doing that this year too, and I am blown away how like in the summer it's like a week or so, and it's you pull back the landscape fabric and you're like, there was arugula here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wild. And if you're looking to try that, I mean, you can just straight up cover it, but it definitely works better if you put down some compost and wet it and then cover it. I
Yeah,
find
for sure.
that's a lot faster. Yeah, it's a great system. And like when I first started, like I was seeing people coming through with, like a stirrup hoe or pulling the crop, and like I tried that in loose compost, like a deep compost mulch system, and like it would just pull all the roots and all the soil out, and I was like pulling so much organic matter out of the ground. I'm like, this is silly. So I started pulling each one by, and that I couldn't. That, like you said, like the baby green bed flip was like driving me crazy, and now it's at the point where it's like kind of enjoyable. If
Yeah,
like
yeah, you're right. It is. It's satisfying. You're just like laid on there. It's like, yeah, it's like those infomercials. Set it and forget it. Just like,
Yeah, and all the roots are still in the ground. All the organic matter just gets broken down so quickly. So are you following with like a fertilizer mix and then a tilther or something like that?
yeah, depending on what it is. Yeah, depending on what your preceding crop would be, we'll amend it depending on that. So maybe a little bit differently if it's a root crop, if it's a baby crop, if it's lettuce. You kind of find different mixes and things like that work better for those crops. So yeah, and tilthering, love the tilther, and sometimes you need to get the shoulders a little bit if it's a baby green bed. But we we had a lot of 3 foot left over. Now we're going more just a 4 foot landscape fabric just to kind of get those shoulders. And yeah, no, it's amazing, crazy. I just still all the time just think about it. I mean, we never had a way to spread compost, so it's kind of like when you first hear it, you're like, well, how am I going to really get it if you don't have a tractor? What are we doing, wheelbarrows? And like, what how much time is that taking? We couldn't get a good organic compost source, so all those things just didn't. And then you kind of are like, yeah, and then they made the compost spreader, and it's like, now you can ride around in your BCS on the compost spreader, and it's like, cool, like I can take my kid in there and he's like, thinks it's really cool. So I don't know, it's and compost piles are really good entertainment for 3-year-olds, so that's been really cool too. So it's been a win-win, and it's really good stuff. And yeah, the microbiology, I think, it's interesting. We get pocket gophers here, and I'm like on the hunt for this one, so I was like digging out its tunnel, and it's right near a bed, of course, and you can kind of see like the layers of like from the beginning of the season of when we started this, and just kind of see how the compost is now kind of getting into more, deeper and deeper into our bed. And it's just like, normally by springtime our soil is degraded from that boost it got from the cover crop, and by the end of the summer or the spring, you're just trying to hold on. You got very low organic matter, at least for us. The days are getting warmer, organic matter is burning quicker. So huge game changer that now we're going to be slowly building the soil towards the end of the season. And I'm, so far, as I mentioned, we might not cover crop this season, is we might just prep our beds like this, and then instead of landscape fabric, just use, heavily water them, maybe even do some sort of vermicompost / molasses type of spray. Been reading a little bit more in that, and we actually saw some research project that was doing something like that, just to kind of get all that microbiology just going crazy. Silage tarps, and then whip it off in the fall and be ready to go. Just machinery wise, cover crop is a little bit of a issue. And mostly, though, pest pressure. So I mentioned no freezes, pests, certain ones that we struggle with live on the cover crop. Cutting it down, they're looking in for the next for the next thing to go on, which is going to be your cash crop. So it's a little bit difficult. So of course, we're going to probably have a freeze this year, but it'll be interesting to see. And I think our insect pressure and pest pressure, which we struggle with like crazy coming out of the summer, will be significantly reduced.
Okay. So any other tools that are a part of that process? I'm guessing like you probably don't need to broad fork if there's sand underneath your compost, right?
Yeah, I have a broad fork. I've used it like one time. It's
Okay.
just I think, yeah, I bought it just to try it out, but yeah, it's not a thing. Broad forking. I don't know anybody in Florida that really broad forks. Compaction's not a problem for us. You can drive over your beds with your like a truck, and it's not going to do anything.
Okay. Have you considered doing like wider beds because of that?
Not really, just because everything is off of tool wise, tilther, um, now the compost spreader, just from a
Standardization.
that and just from personally, I like stepping over a bed and being I've kind of long legs. I can just easily walk over a bed and like hop over them, as opposed to like, I don't know, I guess you would have to be constantly stepping in beds and things like that. But yeah, I've kind of gotten things figured out as far as like with the paper pot transplanter, how many rows, of course, with the Jang. So yeah, I don't think I'd go away from that. Just yeah, and that standardization also. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you feeling about the tilter lately? Is that something that you're like, that's a big part of your system?
I mean, we've had it for 3 or 4 years in the system, and yeah, yeah, it's especially, yeah, like I was just tiltering some beds today, and like it is really like when you take that tarp off too, it's just kind of like a nice way to just kind of mend that, put that new compost, because when you lay that compost, you're not really getting into the bed, and then kind of introducing that with whatever amendments or whatever else you're putting in. So yeah, I mean, we still use it. I would really ever consider it, but I mean, we have a thing, the wheel weeder, which is like kind of like a wheel hoe, which kind of could be like a backup tilter. I mean, it kind of is doing the same thing a little bit more manually. But yeah, the tilter, it just gives a nice like little bit of a lift to it, and then I feel like the Jang goes through it a little bit better. I feel like you get a little bit more of a better seed to soil contact germination wise for it, and it just looks nice, right? So
Yeah, I know. I have a tilter and I love using it, but I'm kind of thinking, I don't know. I don't know if I can give it up. Like, I feel like it's like a human addiction. It's like, because it looks good. And I'm like
yeah.
questioning, like, is it actually like causing a little bit of damage? Like, could I do without it? I don't know. I've been having that debate like a lot lately. So, but I'm
But
not
as far
ready to
as the
get.
amendments, yeah, but like as far as
I
the
know the
implementing and
amendments.
stuff like that, yeah, you gotta kind of, and there's different ways to use it where you're not going as deep, like I'm sure you can kind of just do a little bit more of skimming the surface, if that's really a big deal. But yeah, I mean, when you're talking about inches, it's like really how much, and
I know. I use it, man. I love
yeah,
it. So.
yeah, no, it's great, it's great, it really is, yeah.
All right, cool. What was I going to talk about? Oh, I want to talk. We were chatting for a second, but can we talk a little bit about potting mix? You have a couple of different techniques. If you want to talk, if you can share some of those things with everyone, that would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and we were talking about it before, and just kind of go a little bit deeper into it. I think there's potting mixes for different applications. Like we use a lot of paper pots. We grow a lot of microgreens. We do standard trays. I mean, obviously, like standard for transplants. So in my mind, like I'll be looking at a soil mix that I've combined or done, and I'm like, this is really good, so and so for that application, or like, you might be doing pea shoots and you're like, this is actually a little too good for pea shoots, like this is a little bit too fertile, I don't think. So yeah, there's good things I think for each application. We use like a fine germinating mix as kind of a base that we start with. So we're just talking about like crushed up perlite, vermiculite, and peat moss, and that's kind of like a good base. There's some Fox Farm products that we use, a little bit more expensive. You and I were talking about, is it really worth it? It's like a little bit more of the earthworm castings. Technically, I think you can probably, if you got a good source of like quality earthworm castings, you can kind of probably use that as, instead of, if you do have another mix that you're using. So we always play around with it. I like the and organic fertilizer. So we were talking about that. I think that's key to kind of growing nice, healthy transplants, from what I could tell. Just a little bit more of like that macronutrients as opposed to the micro and the microbiology that you're using with the worm castings and the back guano and this and that. That's all put in there. So yeah, I think a finer germinating mix is really good for paper pot transplanting. I don't know how familiar you are with the paper pots and stuff like that, but if you have a nice fine soil, that just it makes all the difference in filling them, to packing them down, to having good germination. I think that's really key, and it's also a pain, like, because those holes are so small,
Yeah.
that if you end up with a little piece of mulch, you'll be like that, it'll take up literally the whole paper pot. So it's like, that's, you're not going to grow a healthy transplant like that. If it's a little bit more mulchy, I think it's okay for microgreens. And then kind of an in between, I think, is good for transplants and stuff like that, and standard trays, whichever one you're using. So those are our main three different applications of what we're using, but in some way, form, and fashion, they're just different, mixes of each other. And we, try to mix maybe 4 or 5 bags at a time and have that mix for a little bit.
Okay, so is it mainly for like cost savings, or mainly just to like dial in for this each application, or is it kind of a combination?
A little bit of a combination. The Fox Farm products, like I said, are expensive, and you're paying for, I think, the name a little bit. You're paying for all those little extras and stuff. And it's a little bit more of like trying to figure out exactly everybody's always trying to figure out what grows the healthiest transplants, and we've always struggled with that. I think every year we've gotten a little bit better. This year, I think we're growing some of the best transplants we have, and some of the best microgreens, and not any sort of like nitrogen deficiencies. Like if we try to get a later, true leaf on the microgreens, we try to get kind of specific, and we've been growing microgreens for a while, and there's different things with like the spacing and stuff you can do. But yeah, we're always trying to figure it out. But it's a little bit of cost. It's a little bit sometimes what the supply house has. If you go and they say, oh, that Fox Farm product is super popular, a lot of different growers of different sort, nursery growers use it, a lot of the cannabis growers use it, so it's in a lot of different places. And so if we can't get our hands on that, we'll just make some different changes, and ultimately it works out. Micros don't really, you and I were talking about, care too much what they're growing in. It's got to be pretty bad for them to show some weakness, and really could tell. I think, and what I mentioned before is a little bit more of like, if you want that true leaf, and if you want a super quick days to maturity, and you're trying to flip that over, whether it's if the greenhouse space is an issue, or you're just on a system or a schedule that is better for a quicker turnaround. But yeah, micros shouldn't care too much. The transplants, mostly the paper pot is so small and it's not staying in there too long. But certain things do, like, maybe I'll fertilize a little bit more. Like we've been doing celery, just transplanted some of that, and that takes a little while, and that wants to stay in there a little bit longer, and I like to get it nice and big before it goes out. So kind of all depends a little bit, but in some form or fashion, it's kind of all the same thing.
All right. Thanks for all that. You mentioned edible flowers before, and can you talk a little bit about that? Like if someone's thinking like maybe that's something they want to add into the repertoire or start experimenting with, any sort of beginner tips or, varieties to try or things like that?
Yeah. For us heat lovers, we grow a ton of marigolds. So we grow a lot of what they call confetti mix, which is like the Durango marigolds, and they're just a big marigold, and we manually make the confetti mix. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So it's a big marigold, and you're cutting it, and it breaks into petals, and it's confetti is what we call it, and that's a big seller. So marigolds are really good. You can do even the really small ones. They're a little bit, what are they? The gems, tangerine gem, lemon gem, red star, stuff like that. Those are a little bit more intricate. Pastry chefs like them a little bit more. We do a lot of pansies, violas. We've done, those are popular. We do those winter and spring. Marigolds we do spring, and we even I have them in the greenhouse now in like jackpots, so we'll try to do those all year round. And it's just, it's like a tropical kind of look, and I think a lot of like the restaurants like that because people come to Florida. It's what they kind of expect, and it's got fall colors and stuff too.
What does the production look like for that? Are you growing them in normal beds? Like,
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they grow really well. We actually, it's kind of funny that they end up in high-end restaurants like this, but we grow them in our front yard as and and landscape fabric. It's like the only place that we use landscape fabric. Like we use some of our old ones that we used to use, like planting in the burnt holes and stuff. But they are in our front yard, and they make really pretty landscaping, and then you harvest them every 3 or 4 days just to keep them going and making them up. They're popular at market. People really like them. They're an eye catcher, even if people don't buy them. Sometimes it brings them into the booth. Trying to think what else. What other ones? We got really big into. We did borage. We've dill flower, sweet alyssum grow really well. some Asian restaurants like a bok choy flour. Um, there's so many different ones. It's really crazy. We've taken a step back from them just because restaurants have slowed down a little bit, and maybe
Right.
fine dining has slowed down a little bit. But they were getting really, really popular there for before COVID hit. I would say they were like creeping up on micros and stuff.
Okay. And so how is that being sold? Like in terms of, is it like clamshells by the ounce, by the pound? Like how does that work?
Yeah, we try to keep it simple. We do, standardization on a clamshell, so we're not counting individual petals or flowers for the most part. Pansies sometimes, and certain chefs may want a certain count. And honestly, for pricing, it's probably a little bit easier. We found, you can kind of see, like, I know flower wise, I think it's Chef's Garden, the big guy in Ohio with the overalls. He does a lot of them, so it's kind of nice. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
I think it's Chef's Garden. But sometimes I'll see his stuff in in a walk-in cooler, and it'll be like very interesting flowers, and you can go on their website and see. And that's honestly a great start for somebody because a pastry chef of a hotel that we sold to had like a brochure of theirs that they send out, and it's like every flower. And these are some flowers that you've seen before and you don't realize they're edible, like Egyptian starflower. Trying to think what it is, escaping me now. What it is. Whatever. It's a common flower annual that you don't really think too much of, and it's a very nice culinary, flower that people love. So for pricing and stuff like that, it sometimes is better to do counts and eaches, but for the most part, especially at market, we're just doing a standardization of a certain clamshell.
Okay. Is the shelf life pretty short too?
No, no, I would say pansies right now easily 2 weeks, and confetti probably 2 weeks as well.
Very cool. All right.
Yeah, no, they're great. I'd recommend it. I mean, it takes a certain. You need a.
Customer.
Yeah, I would definitely try to sell it before you planted it because it's very easy to get inundated with it, and it's tough to terminate a bed of flowers because they're really pretty, and you don't really want to just like go through that. And I mean, we've in the past planted way too many. And there's certain things like borage we found grows better in a greenhouse. Like we've done them in the past. They just don't like our unfiltered sun. We found they're more of a delicate flower. Nasturtium, similar as well in that
Yeah.
regard. But the marigolds grow great. Pansies this time of year grow amazing. They get a bigger flower as it gets cooler for us. So yeah, no, they're great. Yeah, there's always different things you can do, and it's maybe an in with like catering companies, and we have a couple customers that do like cheese boards and stuff, and that's their main thing that they want to get. So it could open you up into different things, but I know it's tough just to do or start with flowers or edible flowers or something like that.
Right. Have you found it like craft cocktails and stuff like that too, or mostly?
Yeah,
Yeah.
bartenders use it. Yeah, when pre-COVID, when back in the day when restaurants were still a thing and people were going to them a lot, or at least drinking at a bar often, and they wanted to get quality stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Desserts, so pastry really likes them. Craft cocktails. Yeah, we would sell to the chefs, or the bar managers would tell the chefs, and they would just get a couple extra packs for themselves. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, it's something I'm like thinking about, and I also, when I went to go visit Spencer Rudolph at Sage Hill Ranch Gardens in February, and he was on the show. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and he's doing edible flowers in grow bags in his nursery, and like he basically, I think it was at least in one of the videos I did with him. I don't remember which one, but he did like just along the main walkway in his nursery, he just had grow bags full of, and it was like he's like, yeah, we just kill it with these. It's sort of a great add-on product if you're already going to restaurants. So
That's it. Yeah, I would say it's an add-on. It's tough to start small if you're gonna start, because they, like I said, they can get out of hand quick. And flowers, you pick them the next day, they're like ready to go. Depending on the weather, of course. But I would definitely start small, and you kind of would drum up that business. But they're great. Yeah, like I said, we have 20 grow bags, jackpots, as I call them, in our prop house, and we just planted marigolds because we want to have them throughout the winter. We just have some chefs that are just like all about them, and they don't really want another flower. So yeah, they're really good and quick money maker for sure.
very cool. Yeah, and then in North Carolina here, they just made to-go cocktails legal. No joke.
Oh wow.
I'm like,
Yeah, I
What
mean,
is
you
this?
got to spruce them up somehow. So yeah, I'm sure they're going to be looking for different ways to make them, different than what you can make at home.
Yeah, what is this, like New Orleans here now? This is crazy. I don't know. They just announced that up. We were all like, "Wait, what? To go mixed drinks? What's going on?"
Yeah, how do
Um,
they serve them? What do they serve them in? That's
I
kind of
don't
interesting.
I don't know. I just saw like something on Instagram. Someone was like pouring it in a bottle, like to go. I don't know, man. I just
And
this is
is
like
that like a instant DUI? Like if you get pulled over with that?
I'm just thinking like who's yeah. It's like not like a seal. Like it's like what is a screw top? Yeah, I don't know. I
Just comes in a flask.
it's legit, man. It's to go cocktails now. I don't know. Anyways, I don't know if they put edible flowers in them. I should find out. All right, so I want to ask you, and I don't see a lot of questions in the chat tonight. I guess everyone's just hanging out. But guys, make sure you hit the like button and also get some questions in. We're a little over an hour here, and I want, if you have some questions, make sure you get them in. Otherwise, Jordan and I will just keep nerding out about stuff, which is probably fine too. I want to ask you about like extreme weather and hurricanes and how that affects what you guys do. And for me, I mean, I'm in Central North Carolina, so we do get storms, but they're a lot weaker when we get them. Like, we'll get big rain events, maybe 60-mile-an-hour winds, kind of thing. But like, how do you handle that, and like mentally, and also like, on the farm?
So we really, of course, we can get like tropical storms, depressions, whatever you want to say, but we of course need to really worry about hurricanes the first couple months of our season. So I mean, we even this year was crazy, but what was it like? Beginning of November, I mean, you guys as well. It was coming a lot up that way, but I mean, yeah, I mean, there's no way around it. You get, you see these things far out, and might you get like a little pit in your stomach and hope it's not coming to you. But like everybody else, there's only so much you can really do. With hurricanes, I mean, we really got destroyed during Irma. It was like right in the beginning of our season, which I guess you could say is a good thing. But we just built this new greenhouse, and being on the altitude we get really bad wind, and not many things are protecting us. So um, yeah, it's tough. It's a gamble in the beginning of the season. You want to get started quick. You want to get going. You're all gung ho coming out of summer, and you kind of humbles you pretty quick that you need to pump the brakes and respect Mother Nature, and keep an eye on the forecast. But I mean, if you plant out, there's not much you can do. Our two houses that closed, they'll be okay. They got through Irma fine. So, and we've made changes on the existing structures, a few different things. One I mentioned with the plastic in the middle. So, hopefully, we'd be able to get through one again. But of course, they take its toll on the crops themselves that are out in the field. So, there's not too much. It's really a tough one mentally. It's disheartening to say the least. Like when you're starting a season and you get everything going, and you see a big storm coming that could erase pretty much everything. But it's the game we're in. It's you kind of. I feel like the more I do it, the better I become with it, or can rationalize it a little bit more, and just understand it's part of the process of having a farm, and the year to year process with it. But we're in a tropical location. It's probably going to only get worse. It's crazy, but it's like you got to expect them every year now. So it's not
Yeah.
easy.
And so, what kind of preparations? You said one tunnel you can seal up and does okay. Do you like take plastic off? I guess you don't have walls on your tunnels, right?
Yeah, no, the rule of thumb is that you should. I mean, if you're really getting it, that's kind of why we left that middle part without plastic, because if you have a storm barreling down on you like a hurricane, they tell a lot of growers around here just to come and with a knife and just slit it so it can get through. Like I mentioned, we have 150 pounds of concrete in each one of our posts in our greenhouse, so the whole unit's not going anywhere. It bent during Irma, but it's not lifting up and taking it with it, which is kind of one of the things you have to worry about, like the plastic acting like a kite or something. But yeah, you're supposed to split it. It's crazy, disheartening to do that at the beginning of a season, and then, realize you're just going to have to replace it and buy whole new plastic. And a lot of times when there's a storm, people will buy up the plastic beforehand, which is, I guess, the smart thing to do. And then there's really not much for you afterwards. So you're kind of waiting on inventory to renew. So you could be without plastic for a little bit. So that part is difficult, but it's just one of those things. It's like, I kind of try to rationalize it like other places have snow where you could have collapsed houses, and deal with that. But yeah, it's definitely scary. I mean, each year it kind of gets worse and worse. The predictions are more severe, and climate change as a whole is affecting a lot of people. So, we're not alone. And talking with nearby farmers and stuff like that makes you feel better and hearing different things. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just removing any sort of debris that's going to blow and maybe tear open another house, because I've heard of that happening as well. But there's not much you really can do. It's one of
Yeah.
those frustrating things.
Yeah, it was really humbling. In my first season, this is 2018. I don't remember the names of the storms, but we got one and it wiped out all my. For us, it wasn't the wind. We just got so much rain that like everything just didn't make it. And I replanted my whole farm in those like couple weeks, and then we got another one. The same thing happened like 3 weeks later, and I was like, all right, I guess I replant again. And then it was like too cold, and I was like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's really humbling, and I think as a farmer you have it never gets easier, but like we're the most resilient people. Like we're just like, all right, we'll get it again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's just
It's tough. It's I mean, as you probably know, it's in the moment. It's tough to say that, right?
It's really hard, especially when you're like, okay, there was $50,000 there or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Well, you think about everything you lost. You think about the potential of it, of what you could have made. So no, it's really tough. And in the moment, like I said, it's really difficult. I don't know how much help you guys have with like, NRCS or USDA or stuff like that, but sometimes there's some disaster relief help out there that financially could make it a little bit more digestible. But it's tough. There's no way around it. But, I mean, we're growing outside. It's what it is. I hope people, I think our customers and most people we work with respect it, understand it. If something happens and we can't go to market maybe that first week or during whatever it is, but yeah, I mean but part of the reason plastic is so valuable in covering your farm and all that. And I mean, it makes me worried. We don't have any of the like Farmers Friend Caterpillar tunnels. I don't know if they'd be able to withstand in Florida. I know there's some different things you can do to it to make it a little bit more secure, but I would worry about it. It's kind of why I like investing in houses that can withstand that. And I mean, our houses, minimal, should be able to withstand 80 to 90 mile an hour winds. But if they're closed up, I feel like they can do a little bit more. And, Irma was 120, and tornadoes and stuff like that. So it's tough to prepare for that. But yeah, I definitely sealing them up. I mean, I remember talking to somebody and they were like, you just have to leave it, open up everything and just let the wind blow through it. And I don't recommend that. I definitely recommend covering it up and just trying to seal up best you can. Because if wind gets in there, it's going to want to go up, and then you're dealing with a lot of other problems. I mean, it's rid plastic, and then whatever else is in there could get torn up too. So yeah.
Yeah, where I am is we have a lot of trees around us, so it's not super windy. And during that 2018 season, I have a really crappy DIY tunnel I started with when I thought I knew what I was doing when I first started farming. I still don't know what I'm doing. But anyways, yeah, I just closed it up like really tight, and it was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, you talk to like greenhouse manufacturers like in other places, and they're like, oh, but the snow. But I'm like, I don't know. It's not an issue here. Like, it's other things, and you have to take that. I'm really curious to see about the Farmers Friend tunnels, like as more people are buying them in different parts of the country, how they experience it. I know like Casey and Tori at Honey Tree Farm. I don't know if you know who they are, but they like just tie multiple tunnels together. They'll throw ropes over like 2 tunnels so that like it has to lift both tunnels up, and he said that's been helpful. Some stuff like that, just to like sort of increase the overall strength of and make it a bigger structure. But yeah, I got a couple questions that came in, and then maybe we'll try to wrap it up. Jordan, thoughts on forced air geothermal greenhouses? I guess it's not really your thing, but maybe some people growing citrus like in more northern climates. Do you have any experience with that or any thoughts on it?
So originally I was thinking that's kind of what I was alluding to before with the cold air and then forcing air through it, because that's what I thought, but maybe they're talking about the opposite way
I think
around.
it's heating, yeah.
Okay. No, we don't have any of our houses heated. I mean, we can grow. That's the only thing Florida can really grow well is citrus, even though now it's citrus greenings out there. So not much citrus is growing with the disease taking over pretty much everywhere. But yeah, don't know too much about that. I mean, we have enough sun here that heats up our houses plenty, but yeah, and stayed away from citrus, so can't help there.
Okay. And John is asking, I guess you had mentioned talking about you have a half an acre of fruit. Can you talk a little about any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we do primarily peaches and nectarines, and they are grafted. Florida kind of got into them when citrus left with the freezes in like the 80s, and then now citrus greening. A lot of people are pushing their groves and replacing them either with like blueberries and peaches. So UF, our land grant university, has taken a lot of steps to develop like peach cultivars that do well here. So we got a lot of them. We got a lot of the newer ones. We have about 80 peach trees. We have like avocados, some blueberries, pineapples. We have a decent amount, probably 100 or so.
I'm just like, man, I'm so jealous.
Yeah, but yeah, you'll come in the summer sometimes. It's not so nice when all of that's happening, but yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, we literally, it's crazy. We just harvested like a good amount of pineapples, and it's like, it's like 40 degrees, and they're like still pretty sweet and stuff. But yeah, I mean, perennials and stuff like that are easy compared to annual vegetables, in my opinion. I mean, like you talk to citrus growers. I mean, they go out there like, once a month to check on their grove, and it's like, what's really going on. I mean, I obviously know there's things, but with peaches, there's some things you need to be careful about. Really, it's pruning them twice a year, thinning them, the fruit that is, once there's fruit set. We use landscape fabric, so weeds are not an issue. They're extremely vigorous, so once they start going, they're pretty good. We thought we were having some issues this summer with peach borer, lesser tree peach borer, which peach growers may know as a common fatal disease. But well, borer is an actual insect, but they bore in there, and then it could rot the tree from the inside out. There's two different kinds, but it turned out we didn't. I think it was more, and this is going to sound crazy and very Florida, but the fire ant problem, like ants literally like eating our tree. We have very bad ants here. Ants will eat our eggplant, like the plants themselves, like take them down in a matter of like a day or two. I mean, they're ridiculous. The fire ants, we have a good amount of them, and they'll come in the bed as well. But yeah, so not too much, but yeah, the perennials are not too much to keep up with when you're dealing with annual vegetables. They are, they're extremely high maintenance. They're needy plants, and the fruit can just kind of go. They're going dormant right now, and then we'll start. The whole thing with Florida too is they'll fruit a little too early. Like we'll get a hot week, or in January, February, we'll get a warm week, I should say, 80 degrees, mid 80s, full sun, stuff like that, and high humidity, of course. And that'll send the tree budding early. So some people, and we've done it in the past, pull all those buds off, and then hopefully they produce again. So there's that whole thing, and then it could have a chance for a freeze later in the season, and then you lose everything that you have on there. So there's some things Florida specific that make peaches a little bit more difficult to have like a really good crop. But this year I'm pretty happy with the way they grow. I always find with like perennials and stuff, how they look, how they do in the off season, I guess, before they fruit is like equivalent to like how well they're going to do and like the yield they're going to produce. So like if you have a nice vigorous peach tree that is really full right before dormancy, I think it's going to have a really, really good harvest. If you kind of have some disease happening, some fire blight, or like whatever, shot hole leaf blight is another one that peaches get. There's a lot of different things that they get. That I think, if it's kind of like limping into the main season, you're not going to have a great crop. But if you can have some really nice healthy trees, and they get huge. I mean, like some of them are 20 feet tall, and you kind of have to keep them, knocking them down, and we have them extremely close together, kind of like just going with the whole intensive spacing and planting and all that type of stuff. So we've really pushed the limits. So I kind of play around with like the pruning techniques and stuff, and yeah, they're fun though. I kind of like it. It's nice to have a little bit of diversity, and chefs, there's nothing that gets a chef more excited than fruit.
Awesome. Yeah. I have two questions, I guess. One is, what does that look like? Is it sort of interplanted, or is it sort of like blocks, like here are the peaches, here are the pineapples, or
Yeah.
like how is that set up?
Yeah. I'm too much of like a, I don't know, neat freak, or this needs to go here. I couldn't do that. I mean, I know some farms do, but I don't know. I even
So
have it close to a vegetable net bed now, and it's just like then all the peach leaves get on your bed, and like depending on honestly, like if you have baby greens right under there, you're
yeah.
harvesting some peach leaves, and it could interfere with the harvest process. So there's little things you think about like that, and we like to use landscape fabric, like I said, so that kind of takes care of like any of the competition around it. But yeah, I just like the kind of look of like and walking being able to like walk through fruit trees and like a peach orchard and stuff like that is super cool, especially like when they're blooming and stuff.
Does that take a lot of irrigation too?
No, no. In the summer we get plenty of rain for them. I mean, maybe in like a dry spell and really really warm conditions, you'd
Right.
want to give them a little bit of water. I would say more so when fruit production starts. You want to give them enough, and that's normally in the dry season. So you just want to make sure. I mean, they're produced. A peach tree will put out so many different fruits, and it's your job to thin them in order to get a good sized fruit every so often, as opposed to having a ton of little ones. And there's so much moisture being devoted to those fruits. It's good just to hit them with a good amount of we fertilize them twice a year, so we
Okay.
try to keep them nice and healthy.
Well, I know for people further north, we're definitely jealous of the fruit production. Like Jesse and I were out in California in February, and we were just literally staring at all the citrus trees. Like, wait, this just grows everywhere. Like,
Yeah,
how do you control yourself? We're just like shoving oranges in our mouths like
yeah.
nonstop. Do you found anything successful with battling the fire ants? Because I get that question a lot, even in the Carolinas. Like, I haven't had to deal with that, but have you found anything that's like effective?
I always say, DE, Domesticaceous Earth, helps somewhat. I don't really know too much. Something like Pyganic and organic spray would definitely knock them out. If they're really bad, but they are just persistent, and it's not a battle you really want to get yourself into. It's tough. I definitely noticed in the warmer months they're worse, and they move faster, they do more work. It's crazy, but like even now they've slowed down a lot. You see them working, they're like chilled out a little bit. They're not, and I'm sure it's with their like body temperatures and stuff, but yeah, they're not as prevalent right now, but it's tough. Those two things I would say. If we have a big um, yeah, they're in our bed a little bit, and it's mostly coming out of this summer. I can't figure out exactly why they like eggplant over other things more so. We have a little bit maybe an issue with tomatoes, but like cucurbits and stuff like that, they never really bother. Um, it's mostly for people visiting the farm that doesn't don't know, where ant piles are or sun or something like that. That doesn't quite, because I mean, fire ants are nasty. They bite you, and then it's not even the worst part. It's like kind of what comes after that. So, no, we definitely get them in like cleaning when you're cleaning out trays and stuff. That's kind of where I find it the most. They love like microgreen trays and stuff like that.
Mm.
They'll just get in there, and it'll be like you could have a stack of them empty that you need to clean or something, and they'll be in every single one, and you're trying to get them off, and they'll end up in your shirt, like in your pants somehow, like just biting you ridiculously. It's one of those things. Yeah. So all the people that are jealous of of all the things Florida, you can think of fire ants and getting bit, in not so pleasant areas. So
Yeah, people ask me, Josh, like, where would you like to farm? You could farm anywhere, and honestly, I would probably farm further north because, like, the pests don't stop here. Like,
right.
there's no freeze out. There's no like, let's start over in the
Oh yeah,
spring.
yeah.
It keeps rolling. So, Jordan, what are some things, maybe one or two things or more, whatever, that you're sort of experimenting with or excited about this season, or what's new? Like, what are some things that you are looking forward to this season?
So the bed flip, the just adding a lot of organic matter is really exciting. We've been using the Albrick method of balancing our soils a little bit more, so I find that stuff kind of exciting, and seeing the difference of a properly balanced soil versus others. We're doing some new crops like a celery, like I mentioned. Always playing around with new crops. We're really trying to this season. We really try to grow a more diverse crops of that are really going to fill people up, as opposed to maybe more of the frivolous garnish type of stuff. So we had a good sweet potato year this year. That was pretty good. Yeah, new crops are always exciting. We're always switching up varieties. Trying to think what else is new. We have the new house that we're experimenting with. Every house is a little bit different. Like this one is just plastic now, so it's nice to see the difference between that and the shade cloth one. trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean it's farming. It's always new and exciting, right? It's never always the same. Weather's different. Your customer base is different. It's always changing, so it's always exciting in my mind. But trying different things, yeah, new varieties. It's always, it's all exciting to me. I know it's tough to figure out what I guess other people, sometimes I lose people into what I'm excited about. Like, somebody will ask you at the farmer's market about that, and you can just see them glazed over, and they don't even know what they just got themselves into. But, I think what's exciting for us as farmers is a little bit different than what it is for normal people.
Yes, absolutely. Well, with
Yeah.
that, Jordan, how can people follow along with what you're doing, or check in with what you do?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, Sugar Top Farms. Facebook, same thing. We have a website that we've been updating a lot. We have an online store if anybody's local and wants to buy some produce. We have an online store that we open every week on Wednesdays. My wife really takes care of that whole side of it. And yeah, we're plugging along and trying to finish this. I know a lot of people are thinking about starting their season, but we're thinking about spring and stuff like that, and finishing our season strong. And yeah, we're if anybody has any questions or anything, reach out. I'm happy to share. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it, and talking about Florida growing and fire ants. So thanks so much, Jordan. We'll catch up soon.
All right, thanks, Josh.
All right, so big thanks out there to Jordan, and just an amazing farmer and just a cool guy, and just doing some neat stuff in a tough growing situation. I think I always take a lot out of talking to growers in different regions and the sort of struggles that they're faced with and how they overcome them. And I also love talking to farmers that grow in extreme heat, because it's something that, like, even in the Carolinas here, like we struggle with too. So I like to hear people are doing in more extreme environments. So again, big thanks to Jordan. We will see you guys in 2 weeks with Jonathan from Farmer's Friend. And please definitely go check out the No Till Flowers podcast coming out tomorrow if that's interesting to you. And be well, guys. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. I'll see you guys next year.